I always hate to interrupt the conversation. I apologize, but I have some very compelling things to say. Welcome to the Society for International U.S. Chapter 2024 Annual Dinner. I'm Catherine Rafelson, President of SID-US, as we like to call ourselves. Tonight, we will honor former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who has many fans in this room, with our award for outstanding leadership. She is here tonight, as I think you all know, and you will hear more about her and from her shortly. I just want to say now that we are so honored, Madam President, to have you here tonight. And you have many fans and admirers in this room whom you have inspired over the years to do good and to make the most of their lives. How many of you here have dreamed bigger because of President Sirleaf's comment that if your dreams do not scare you, you are not dreaming big enough? And speaking of dreaming big, this dinner is our biggest one yet. My dreams about this dinner definitely scared me. We have well over 800, pushing 850 people in the room tonight, including many special guests and friends from USAID, the MCC, and the State Department. I just want to say thank you all for coming and for all you do for our community. I keep wanting to say that this is our 25th or our 30th or our 50th dinner, but I honestly have no idea how long SID has been holding gala dinners. We have a number of guests here tonight who were part of SID as far back as the 1970s. And maybe Bob Berg knows, were there dinners in the 70s? Yeah? Wow, okay, so maybe this is our 54th dinner or something like that. At any rate, it's my 10th SID annual dinner, and thank you. And as most of you know, these dinners would not be possible for our tiny organization without the support of our sponsors. So I want to call out our platinum sponsors for the exceptional support that they provided tonight. Please join me in thanking Creative Associates, DAI, DT Global, and now the pressure is really on, and RTI International. I also want to thank Steve Cashin for helping to bring our honoree tonight and for all you do. And I want to further thank RTI, along with ACD-IVOCA, Zemitech, and the Pan-African Capital Group for sponsoring students. Thank you. It's really important to us to be able to have students at our dinner. They are the future, and they are truly our bright lights of hope. Thanks to these sponsors, we have undergraduate and graduate students here from American University, Delaware State University, Georgetown University, and Howard University. One of the hallmarks of SID-US is our ability to bring together an extremely diverse group of people all working towards the same ultimate goal to improve lives around the world. It's quite extraordinary, I think, to gather together in the same room the students I just mentioned, along with heads of international development organizations, leaders from our donor agencies, young professionals. We have a lot of young professionals here tonight through our Young Professionals Network, and a former president of Liberia. It's through these connections that we will thrive in the coming years. These connections are important to our work and to our mental well-being. You will hear later tonight from our Rice Award winner, an exceptional young woman from Kenya, who has done innovative work on mental health and international development. And I know she would agree with me that staying connected is key. We're facing a major shift in our community and a transition that will affect everyone. As I think most in this room know, SID-US is a neutral convener for the international development community, and as such, we do not advocate for any position or policy. But I'm going to advocate tonight. I'm going to advocate for us to pull together, to work together towards a positive end, and to lift each other up as partners working for the greater good. Whenever I ask potential members why they want to join SID-US, the answer I hear most often is they want to meet potential partners. Because we bring together people and organizations from all sectors of international development, we create a robust space for networking and for making the connections that lead to partnerships. Many a partnership has resulted from our various annual dinners and conferences and other events. Some are likely being forged tonight in this room. Some of you may remember a particularly fruitful partnership which emerged from our 2016 annual dinner. A few months after that evening, I received an invitation in the mail to a wedding. I didn't know the couple getting married, but there was a note with the invitation explaining they had met at our annual dinner. Every year or so after that, I received a baby announcement, and I think that remains my favorite SID-US partnership. I share responsibility for that union and for all those children with Carrie Hessler-Radlett, who was our honoree that year. She had encouraged the young man to attend the dinner, and I had offered the young woman a ticket. Like tonight, that dinner took place after a very divisive election. It was 8 years ago, and our community was agitated. That night, we presented our award for outstanding leadership to Carrie, who was at the time the director of the Peace Corps. I think many of you were there, and Carrie gave us several challenges that night in her acceptance speech, and I think they bear repeating. So with Carrie's permission, her first challenge was to choose optimism. Among others, she quoted Winston Churchill, saying, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." And I will quote Carrie. She said, "If we are going to make a difference in our country and our world, we need to look with optimism for the opportunities." Her second challenge was to cultivate strange bedfellows, and by that she meant we need to cultivate supportive relationships with a diverse network of stakeholders who understand the importance of our work and are willing to go to bat for us. And your SID network can help you with this. Her third challenge was be the change you seek in the world. I'm going to quote Carrie again. She said, "At a time when our nation's focus is fixed on all that divides us, we in the development community have a singular advantage. We have seen through our own work and the work of our colleagues that finding common ground and fostering cooperation in the face of seemingly intractable differences is not just the best way forward, it is very often the only way forward. She continued, as we gather at a time of tremendous change for our nation and our world, I urge us as a community to bring the hard-won lessons of global development back home. Carrie concluded her remarks that night 8 years ago with this: finding common ground is a matter of choice. Even when we do not see eye to eye with someone, we can still choose to stand with them heart to heart. We can choose to build bridges where others would build walls. We can choose optimism. We can choose healing. We can choose unity. I would like to thank Carrie for writing my speech tonight. And on that note, to build on a feeling of optimism and to shine a light on the future and hope, I want to introduce Will Rice, the son of Andy Rice, who was the founder of SID back in 1957. Some of you in this room knew Andy. Will tell us a bit about his father, and he will introduce the winner of our 2024 Andrew E. Rice Award for Leadership and Innovation by a Young Professional in International Development, who I think will leave you all feeling very optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Let's have a round of applause for Catherine Rafelson and what she's done here year after year. The only unpleasant aspect of serving on the Rice Award Selection Committee is the need to choose just one or even a few individuals for special recognition from what has become over the years an increasingly impressive collection of candidates. But once we zero in on our top choices, the pleasure increases as we get to know more about these young leaders. Candidates pursue their careers all over the world, so we're lucky to have in attendance here tonight not only this year's winner, but the two runners-up as well. Yes. Our runners-up are Luis, this is because I talked to him about this beforehand, Vila Herrera, who works to increase, yes please, who works to increase the amount, well let me say both of them, the amount and quality of political information available to young democracy advocates in El Salvador, and Yulia Bihun, who pursues creative methods for boosting the morale of her fellow citizens, and especially the children, in the war-weary nation of Ukraine. So let's now have a round for both of them. Our award winner is Aflin Tafi Uma. Aflin is a medical psychologist with a master's degree in international development. She has innovated in the delivery of mental health services to young refugees in Uganda and youth in Kenya, including a focus on keeping girls in school. Among her innovations is the integration of sports with mental health counseling. Her Kicks of Hope program offers a fun and supportive forum for therapy through football, or what older Americans like myself still stubbornly call soccer. My father, and the man for whom this award is named, Andrew E. Rice, I think unwittingly subscribed to Aflin's theory of therapy through physical activity. I know he derived mental satisfaction from exertions like hiking, ice skating, and swimming in the cold water of Maine, where his family had a summer home. Though generally not an athlete, he did play tennis, but apparently more for the psychic benefit than to make a fashion statement. My mother said she first noticed and admired him because he had the courage to play tennis wearing black socks. He also took exercise where he found it. Later in life, he once said he got his regular workouts by walking up the DuPont Circle Metro escalator on his way to the SID offices. Some of you may have done that tonight. The difference, of course, is that Aflin is using sports to help kids who have gone through trauma unimaginable to my father, or indeed most of us, and to destigmatize the whole concept of seeking mental health. And I know he would have marveled at this harnessing of physical activity in the cause of better mental and emotional health. That's why it gives me great pleasure to present the 2024 Andrew E. Rice Award for Leadership and Innovation in International Development to Aflin Tafi Uma. You just have to retrieve the award, and then we'll be ready. You can come on up if you want. Oh, you need to get the remarks? Okay. I can hold them till now. You want me to get them for you? Oh, okay.
A very good evening to you all. Thank you, Bobby. I am so excited to be here tonight, and I hope you are too. I came and I saw all the beautiful faces, and I got very excited. But I'm deeply honored and humbled to have been selected as a winner for this 2024 Rice Award for Leadership and Innovation by the Rice Award Committee. And it's my pleasure to stand before you all tonight and share a cause that is so close to my heart. I am so sure that some of you are wondering why we are having a mental health discussion in such a forum. But let me take you back to the definition by World Health Organization on what mental health is. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which an individual realizes their own capabilities, they are able to cope with normal life stresses, and they can work productively and contribute to their community. And so, how can we claim to push for sustainable development when the approach we are taking does not take into account the mental health of the people and the communities involved? As a young development practitioner, I've always been passionate about working with the marginalized communities in the field of mental health. And just to explore how important it is to integrate mental health into the broader development efforts to create resilient communities that are capable of thriving in the face of challenges. I stand here to represent mental wellness with a smile, because most times when we talk about mental health, everyone thinks about mental illness. And so when we share the voices of those who were unheard, we talk about mental health with so much vigor and strength because it's the next big thing, and all of us have to take a responsibility in this. At Mental Wellness with a Smile, we use an approach that is asset-based community development. And so we look at the strengths that communities do have, and we harness these strengths to ensure that there's inclusive development by prioritizing their collaborations to break the cycles of dependency and establish a foundation where mental wellness becomes both a personal and a community responsibility. And tonight, I want to share a brief story about my grandma. But before my grandma's story, where I come from, talking about mental health is a taboo. In fact, we do not speak about it publicly, as I am doing today. And it's not just in my community, but in the whole country, our constitution becomes very harsh on those with mental illnesses. And why? I'll give you an example of someone who tries to attempt suicide in my country. Under the penal code, we have a statement that states that a person that is attempting suicide is liable for punishment, imprisonment for 2 years, or a fine, or even both. And so you can imagine someone who is feeling worthless, helpless, and needs help, someone who's crying for help, ends up being a criminal instead of getting help. And so when you look at this situation, we had the Mental Health Amendment Act of 2022 where we were trying to decriminalize suicide, but also trying to push so that people get to be aware that mental illness is a real thing and we have to embrace mental health in all the sectors of development. I was coming to a personal experience with my grandma, who all the time, she lives very close to a river, River Sondumirio. It floods all the time. And when I was talking to her, she's about 93 years, but all the time she has to move to a place to get shelter, and there will be a lot of aid that will come. They'll have food and shelter for a period of time. But after that, there's this side that people do not look into, and even big organizations, I'm sure, right here, they will give the aid, they'll come as fast responders, but there are also some things that we don't get to see. And so to bridge this gap, we went with Mental Wellness with a Smile right into the communities, create awareness on mental health, and talk to the people where we can find them, right in the communities. Instead of having them go to the facilities where they are stigmatized and they get discriminated when they step out of a counselor's room and they're looked at like, are you crazy? Are you okay? Why are you coming out of these sessions? Then we had to go out to them and reach out to them. And we are also joining in efforts to decriminalize suicide, which is what Mental Wellness with a Smile stands for. And so my grandma, she talks about it and says, how can I move from a place where I have buried my husband, I have buried my children? And these are the unseen things that we cannot really express. If the government comes in, they are going to only support them to have economic recovery. But what happens to the mental health burden that happens to these people? And so while I was walking in Uganda at a refugee settlement in Bidibidi, I felt the weight that these young refugees were going through. I looked at them and I would see that they were not as open as they should be, as young people who are vibrant and full of energy. And this brought the project Kicks of Hope Beyond Displacement. And with this project, we were able to reach out to youths who had gone through traumatic experiences from South Sudan, and now they were living in the settlement. And we realized that there was an innovative approach where we would use football. And so instead of the traditional setup where we go to facilities and get help, we took the help right into the communities. Or not only for promoting the mental health, but also to make sure that we will fight the stigma right into the communities. I know some of you are still wondering what a conversation this is, but I do believe that tonight I stand among fellow change makers, and I feel deeply honored. And I see us all united by the same vision, development that is not only about economic statistics and grand projects, but about creating resilient communities that can thrive in the face of adversities. My work has taught me that true leadership is not about imposing solutions, but listening, collaborating, and supporting the inherent strength that those communities have. To realize this vision, we need collective action. When you create awareness, you need to be sure that people are going to come out, and you need to have the capacity when that happens. And so, we cannot do this alone. And that's why I want to invite each and every one of you tonight that whether it's going to be through partnerships, through mentorships, through resources, you come in and get to partner together so that we can create this transformative impact. Over the next decade, we aim to reach over millions of people, not just through the games of sports, but through other innovative approaches like telemental health services that we can have with the youths who have their phones in their hands. And we can create more awareness, not only through TikTok and Instagram, but through other social media platforms that we have. Instead of just having people dance and enjoy music on TikTok, we can as well have informative information on mental health right at the fingertips. With your collaboration, Mental Wellness with a Smile will continue to blend mental health and development to build communities where mental wellness, inclusion, and sustainable growth go hand in hand. I want to thank SID, and thank you, Catherine, for your communication and having allowed me to come to receive this incredible award. And to the amazing Mental Wellness with a Smile team that are probably going to watch this later on, I want to thank the whole team. And of course, to my university, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Dr. Reut Barak and Virginie Matthew. I want to thank you all for having made my footsteps in international development. And finally, I will end with the famous words of a woman leader that I do look up to. And I had the privilege of meeting her first in Kenya when we had the inaugural cohort of public service emerging leaders in Kenya, and it was about citizen-centric services for the young public servants in Kenya that I was a part of, President Sirleaf. And she said this, that you can be a leader and deliver the right message, but in the end, the people have to believe in you. Do they believe in you? Thank you very much and have a lovely night.
Aflin, thank you very much. That was inspiring, and we appreciate that you brought your passion and your energy to our dinner tonight, so thank you very, very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Wade Warren. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for International Development at Deloitte, and I am delighted to also be the Chair of the Board of the Society for International Development. It's so good to be with all of you this evening. As Catherine said, the dinner is the biggest we've ever had. It seems that the dinner gets larger and larger every year. And with so much change afoot in our country and around the world, I'm really thankful that we could come together to break bread and renew the ties that exist among us. So you're very welcome here. As Catherine noted, the Society for International Development's members come from government, the nonprofit sector, the for-profit sector, foundations, universities, and think tanks. As we like to say, we are the international development community's global town square. As in years past, my primary purpose this evening is to introduce our guest of honor. But before getting to that, I want to do three other things. First, I need to offer some thank yous and some acknowledgments. Let me start with you, Catherine. You are a marvel. This year, I believe, begins your 11th as the SID president. You've done a remarkable job leading this organization. You're pragmatic, you're energetic, you're tireless, and we all appreciate you so much. Thank you. Next, I want to acknowledge the SID staff. And I always say this same line, I feel like, but the SID staff is tiny. They're just 6 people and a handful of interns. They punch way above their weight, and we're so grateful for everything that they do. I won't ask you to stand because I imagine you're buzzing around, making sure that everything is going smoothly. But Julie, Malvika, Dan, Pebbles, Noah, and Max, you make a real difference, and we all appreciate it. Next, I want to thank the SID board. It's such an honor for me to be the chair of this board. I think it's the best board in the business. We're a real working board, and all the members of the board lend their energy, their time, and the resources of their organizations to make SID possible. We get bigger and stronger every year, and it's because of you on the board, so I am just so grateful to you. If I could ask all the board members in the room to please stand and be recognized. Thank you all. And then as far as acknowledgements go, we are so pleased to have a very large number of senior U.S. government officials with us this evening. I can't name everyone, but I'm going to give it a good college try to get to a lot of them, so bear with me just a second. The Millennium Challenge Corporation is extremely well represented here tonight. We have Alice Albright, the CEO of the MCC. Thank you, Alice, for coming. We have, if you clap after every name, we're going to be here a while. So we have Chidi Blyden, who's the MCC Deputy CEO. We have Carrie Lowry, who's the MCC Chief of Staff, and Peter Jaffe, who's the General Counsel of the MCC. So thank you all for being here. From the State Department, we have Becky Bunnell, the Acting Principal Deputy U.S. Global AIDS Coordinator, Barbara Feinstein, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Caribbean Affairs in Haiti, and Maria Longi, the Coordinator for U.S. Assistance to Europe and Eurasia. From the National Security Council, we have Russell Porter, the Director for Central America and Cuba. And thank you. And we have an especially strong showing from USAID. For starters, she had to leave a moment ago, but Michelle Sumilis, who's the acting deputy administrator. We have Clinton White, who's the agency counselor, and Jamie Rogers, who's the agency's chief procurement officer. In addition, from USAID, we have the #1 or #2 person from almost every bureau. We have Mia Beers from Resilience, Environment, and Food Security, Sonali Corday for Humanitarian Assistance, Aaron McKee, Europe and Eurasia, Michael Metzler, Inclusive Growth, Partnerships and Innovation, Andy Plitt, Middle East, Christoph Toko, Planning, Learning, and Resource Management, Julie Wallace, Global Health, Aaron Nicholson, Asia, and Kimberly Ball, representing the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. So at SID, we greatly value public service. Could all of you who work for the U.S. government, whether I called your name or not, please stand to be recognized. Thank you all. All right, the second topic. I can't let this occasion go by without acknowledging the immense importance of the election that we had last week. We are a diverse community, and I can't presume to know what everyone in the room is thinking, but from the conversations that I've had, I know that many of you are wondering how our sector will fare as we enter into a new administration. From everything we've read, international development funding, programs, and approaches could come under increased scrutiny. And I'd like to say a few words about SID's role, amplifying a bit on what Catherine said a little earlier. So as she pointed out, SID is a nonpartisan, non-advocacy organization. Our mandate is to convene our community, to provide information about foreign assistance, and to bring along the next generation of development professionals. We do, however, embrace certain principles. All the members of our diverse community share a fundamental belief in the importance of international development, and we are committed to creating an inclusive environment where difficult issues can be discussed openly and objectively. We believe that regardless of political change in the United States, the need for global collaboration remains constant. As an organization that has endured for decades, we have seen the tools of foreign assistance evolve over time, and we've hosted thousands of conversations about the right way to approach challenges. Change is an inherent part of our work. It can bring both opportunities and struggles. SID-US has always served as a liaison connecting the US government with the international development community, encouraging the exchange of ideas and inspiring action. We are dedicated to continuing this role as we engage with the incoming administration. And my third topic, just briefly, I wanted to let you know that in addition to being nonpartisan and non-advocacy, we are also nonprofit. This annual dinner is a key fundraiser for us, so again, thank you all for being here. But we, of course, recognize the importance of giving back, and that's why we are making a donation to the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Presidential Center for Women in Development. It's an organization that President Sirleaf established in 2018 to empower African women leaders. You'll be hearing more about it later. And then I would also note that the Washington Hilton itself donates food from events like this to kitchens and distribution centers around the city. So, let me turn now to the happy business at hand, which is making our award for outstanding leadership in international development. Over the years, SID has honored exceptional people who have devoted themselves to lifting up the disadvantaged of the world. From the legislative branch, we've honored Senators John Kerry and Richard Lugar, and Representatives Nita Lowey, Jim Colby, and Barbara Lee. From the United Nations, we've honored Henrietta Fore, Amina Mohammed, and last year, David Beasley. And from the executive branch, we've honored USAID administrators Peter McPherson, Andrew Natsios, Peace Corps directors Aaron Williams and Carrie Hessler-Radlett, among many others. So, President Sirleaf, you are in wonderful company, and you do us a great honor by adding to the prestige of our roster of awardees. All right, let me recount for you some of the details of the extraordinary life of President Sirleaf. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was born in Monrovia, Liberia, into a family of modest means, though when she was a child, her father, Jamali Carney Johnson, was elected to the national legislature, the first person representing the Gola ethnic group. And I should pause here while I'm mentioning President Sirleaf's family. She does have many friends and family here, including, I understand, her brother and her sister. So we are very happy to welcome them. Sirleaf attended the College of West Africa in Monrovia, and in 1961, with the support of her family, she moved to the United States to pursue her higher education. Over the next decade, she earned an associate degree in accounting from Madison Business College in Wisconsin, a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Colorado in Boulder, and a master's in public administration from Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government, graduating in 1971. After completing her studies, Sirleaf returned to Liberia, where she was appointed Deputy Minister of Finance by President William Talbert. Her political reputation grew following a bold speech to the Liberian Chamber of Commerce in which she criticized economic policies that prioritize the interests of foreign firms over those of ordinary Liberians. In 1979, she became Liberia's Minister of Finance, introducing reforms aimed at curbing economic mismanagement. Those of you, excuse me, those of you who know the history of Liberia will of course remember that in the next year, Samuel Doe led a military coup that overthrew the government. President Talbert was assassinated and many of his senior officials were executed. From that point in 1980, and over the next 2 decades, through the First and Second Liberian Civil Wars, Sirleaf was forced into exile multiple times. While she was overseas, her reputation grew in global finance. She held senior positions at Citibank, Equator Bank, the World Bank, and the United Nations Development Program. In 1985, she returned to Liberia to contest a senatorial seat, but her outspoken criticism of the Doe regime led to her arrest. She spent 8 months in prison before international pressure and the advocacy of her supporters secured her release, after which she went into exile again. The signing of the 2003 peace agreement that ended Liberia's second civil war opened the door for her return to the country and to political life. So in 2005, Sirleaf launched her historic campaign for the presidency as a candidate for the Unity Party. Despite a tough runoff against former soccer star George Weah, she secured 59% of the vote and was inaugurated as Liberia's president on January 16th, 2006. Becoming, as you of course know, Africa's first democratically elected female head of state. Yeah. During her 12-year presidency, Sirleaf earned the nickname Africa's Iron Lady, a term first coined by The Economist magazine in recognition of her steadfast commitment to peace, justice, women's empowerment, and democratic governance. Her administration focused on post-war reconstruction, economic reforms, and social progress. She made elementary education free and compulsory. She guided Liberia through the 2014 Ebola crisis, and she prioritized infrastructure development, restoring roads, electricity, and telecommunications. A lifelong advocate for women's rights, Sirleaf appointed women in key government positions, and from 2016 to 2017, she served as the first female chair of the Economic Community of West African States. Following her 2 terms in office, Sirleaf founded the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Presidential Center for Women and Development, about which she will be speaking shortly. At 86 years strong, President Sirleaf remains an international role model, an advocate for economic and social development across Africa, and is routinely named one of the world's most important leaders. Her remarkable contributions to peace and governance have earned her many prestigious awards, far too many for me to name here. But perhaps most notably, she co-won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011. Alongside Lema Gabowi and Tawakkol Karman for their work advancing peace and women's rights. She also has received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the United States' highest civilian honor, and the Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor, which is France's highest civilian award. President Sirleaf, while we cannot compare with the other exceptional recognitions you have received, it is with immense pride that the Society for International Development offers you our 2024 award for outstanding leadership in international development. Okay.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you all very much. We now have a real treat in store for you. President Sirleaf has agreed to answer questions from a panel that we have assembled. It will be chaired by the wonderful Carrie Hessler-Redlet, about whom you've heard so much today. Carrie, why don't you come on up? Carrie is a lifelong friend and colleague of President Sirleaf, and she, as you heard, is the former director of the Peace Corps. She's the current president and CEO of Global Communities, and in 2016, she was herself the winner of the SID Award for Outstanding Leadership in International Development. And at the request of President Sirleaf, Carrie is being joined by 3 students from local universities this evening. If you 3 could come on up. These students will ask President Sirleaf a question each. They are Ramatulaya Ba, a senior at Howard University majoring in political science.
Good, thank you.
Noe Doherty, a master's degree student in international development from American University. And Kulunu Jayamani, a master's degree student from Sri Lanka in Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. So, over to you, Carrie.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? No, not yet. Hello? Sit back. You're on. Hello? Am I on? All right. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? Yes. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. I want to give one more round of applause to SID-US. They know how to give a party. I also just want to say how good it is to be together. I don't know about you, but I just wanted to be with my people. I wanted to feel a little joy. This is a wonderful event. It's so good to be together. It's no secret that we're gathering at a time where the future of development is little unclear, and there's a great deal of angst in the international arena. Funding for humanitarian assistance has declined, even as needs have grown exponentially. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I'm going to have to shout. I'm not going to repeat what I said. Concerns about the future of development assistance are growing. I think many of us here in this room feel it. And I think many of us are feeling a little bit overwhelmed about what the future holds for us. And yet we know that the work that we do is so incredibly important and that it changes lives. We also know that those of us in this field play the long game. Development can take years or even decades, and the progress is not linear. We also know that leadership at every single level is critical. I would say even central to development progress. What a privilege it is tonight to celebrate Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, one of the world's most accomplished, courageous, and inspiring global leaders. A person who has defied all odds to win her nation's presidency. I feel like it's going in and out. Can you hear me? Okay. To win her nation's presidency and the Nobel Peace Prize. She's an outspoken champion for women and girls. She is a primary contributor to the SDGs and also a critic, I would say. And she's unquestionably one of the world's most powerful voices for peace, democracy, prosperity, and justice. Thank you. She is also someone whom my husband Steve and I call a friend. Congratulations, Madam President, on your award. There's no one more deserving than you. Thank you. Thank you.
And welcome Rama, Noe, and Kulunu. We're so happy you're here with us on the stage. So we're going to dive right into this conversation. We have a lot on our mind, and we want to hear from you, Madam President. So the first question focuses on your personal life and professional journey. Your pathway to the presidency of Liberia was anything but predictable. You were imprisoned, as we all heard, nearly executed, exiled several times, and then you thrived as a leader when there were very few women on the global stage. What were the major influences that shaped your extraordinary life and career?
Well, Carrie, let me first say that I'm so glad to have so many of my close friends, my sister, my brother, who've already been recognized, my good friends, the rest of my family. And they all know that normally I say I'm cold in any event. But I'm happy to say that the warmth of this audience, even though it's a blinding light that I can't see them all, but that warmth, I think, has made the temperature tolerable. Now we can get to answer your question. You know, the conditions of the nation sort of shapes your values, shape your attitudes and your aspirations. And so we had a very complicated national environment in Liberia, a settler population, not well integrated into indigenous population, and what this meant. And we came from a family that was quite mixed. The background of our father and where he was, but also he was indigenous. And my mother was half indigenous, but also had an external father. And so we had a situation that we were influenced by this difference and the fact that we had to, because they had all been educated by settler families, they could comply with what represented a rather comfortable life. But at the same time, because of who they were and their origins, they also want to make sure that we never forgot what we were, that we really came from indigenous families. And so that mix, I think, brought a different kind of awareness of who you are, what you can do, you know, how you can make a difference. And I think those were, you know, the national setting, the family setting that probably, like I say, shaped some of my thinking, some of the thinking of my siblings and all, and our parental guidance of going as far as you can go but never forgetting your roots is something that I think provided that.
Wonderful. So now I'm going to go over to Rama for the second question.
Yes. Is this on? Okay, I wanted to first start off by saying thank you so much for being here with us this evening. And I wanted to start off by saying, as we all know, you were the very first democratically elected female president in Africa. And you have long been a champion and an advocate for women's leadership in all levels of society, even establishing the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Center for Women's Leadership after you stepped down from the presidency. And there are a number of women leaders in our audience with us today. And with that being said, I wanted to ask you, what opportunities and challenges face up-and-coming women leaders today, and what advice would you have to give to them?
Well, opportunities abound today. The opportunities of being able to set your aspirations, to be able to bring to whatever you do the self-confidence of your vision, your aspirations. It's something that drives each one into achieving the goals that they set for themselves. Being able to be prepared with the courage and commitment and dedication to be able to achieve those. And I think one also have to be able to say that you be courageous enough to go past all the obstacles. Still, being able, you can't do it alone. There's no monopolization of anything, but having those with whom you work that have shared values and being able to provide the influence and that takes them along So, and I think that carrying that with you as a leader perhaps provides the impetus for you to achieve the goals that you have set. And we have so many in this room that have gone through that, so many of them that have achieved the same things. And so that's, I think those are the guidance that we follow. Those are those that represent the role models. We try to exemplify some of what they do in able to achieve the goals you want. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our third question focuses on African development and the role of the U.S. in supporting Africa's future. Although Africa has made extraordinary progress in improving development outcomes over the last 25 years, climate change, civil unrest, and other factors pose threats to those development gains. Now, we know there are 54 African nations, and each one is sovereign and unique. But in your opinion, what are some of the greatest opportunities for achieving development progress in Africa today, and how can the United States best support Africa's future?
Well, let me say that the United States has always been a great partner to Africa, and we might say that the time we took to begin to achieve the transformation goals that we set, the vision that we set for ourselves, has been through great partnerships with the U.S. Over time, of course, things have changed, and today we now find that one has to reshape that partnership. The future, of course, is there, but we are facing the times where some of the things that we had all aspired to, the democracy that we had all fought to get in partnership with the U.S., the example of the strong leadership provided by the U.S., something that we also try to follow in developing, are things that are now changing. We all know that we all had come together with being able to create the Sustainable Development Goals that were meant to set the global targets for achievement by the year 2030, and that was interrupted by COVID-19. And today the changing dynamics of politics and economics have made it necessary to look at the entire global architecture in a different way. And the big emphasis now is on reform. How do we reform this architecture? How we look at the institutions that have faltered, multilateralism and its effectiveness that had been so well implanted in everything we did. And the fact that COVID-19 and changing populism and other existential threats have now caused democracy itself to be challenged. In Africa particularly, we can see already certain nation states, certain countries have beginning to move away from what had been established over long periods of time with a great amount of effort. And the transformation that we had all envisioned, again, have faltered because of these changing global dynamics, changing partnerships, alignments, and arrangements that have all changed. But I think the aspirations are reflected themselves in the ongoing debate today about how do we, again, try post-COVID-19, how do we start these refines, and how do we put the emphasis on people, on participation, and to make sure that not only do we give people more inclusivity in what they do, how it affects their lives, but also how do we pay more attention to our planet?
Yes.
and how do we address things like climate change, artificial intelligence, and all of those. Those are what engages us in the reform agenda of today.
Yes.
And I do believe that there are enough commitment to some of the, if I may say, the old ways of partnership for development that still remains part of our values. And that the threats that we face today, political threats and other existential threats, that we'll see them as aberration, and we can all look forward to returning to being able to, once again, seek those 17 goals of the Sustainable Development.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So over to you, Noe, for our fourth question.
Madam President, after 16 years of civil war, you helped to bring peace to Liberia and set the standard for the peaceful transfer of power as well. With autocracy on the rise and democracy under threat throughout the world, and on every continent, what recommendations would you give to our community to help develop democracy? And are there any concrete, is there any concrete advice you'd like to give us?
Well, let me first say that whatever I achieved is not my own individual effort. It's been a collective effort of the people with whom I have shared values, the supporters, you know, many of them in this room, so many of them I could point them out, but I'm afraid if I start, you know, I'll take up too much time trying to find them, because there's so many of them that have been a part of this journey and have had a part to play in whatever we've achieved. When you talk about autocracy, fasten your seatbelts.
Yeah.
Because it is indeed penetrating.
It is. Penetrating, it is.
Into many of our countries, and unless we can find a way to, again, to go back to those commitments we had to democracy, to participation of people, to cooperation. And particularly today, it's people like you know, who will take the lead. The dynamics of young population in Africa and across the world, particularly the developing world, the number of young people that are technologically ready for leadership, ready to be the ones that drive the processes of change and development, are the ones that are going to take charge. And so an older number of nations today, the older ones, the larger nations, the leadership nations of the world are older, are changing. Political systems are emerging that are changing the partnership alignments. So, but it's a challenge to all of us. It's a challenge to you, the younger generation. So get ready for it.
Get ready. You heard it. Get ready. So you have always been a very strong proponent of locally led development, while also embracing the role that international partners play in ensuring peace and stability across the world. What conditions does locally led development require on the ground? And how can international NGOs and for-profit corporations, such as are assembled here today, best support locally led development?
Let me say that I think one of the best achievement I had the early years of my presidency was to get the Peace Corps to come back to Liberia.
Woohoo, Peace Corps! Can I just ask one thing? Since you mentioned the Peace Corps, I did not mention it, but I would like to ask anyone who served in the Peace Corps to stand up here tonight. All right, woo! Wait a minute. Look at that. That's pretty incredible. Sorry, okay.
And let me tell you that Carrie did not know I was going to say that.
I did not know.
She didn't press it, even though she headed the Peace Corps. But no, it was one of the things that brought a difference. Because what they exemplified was the ability to live like others, to be able to cooperate, to have endeavors through partnerships at that level, going into where the need was greatest.
Yes.
And that's why Peace Corps represented. But also, NGOs that you mentioned, I think have performed well in being able to go where the need is greatest, mostly in communities, mostly in places where the capacity and the infrastructure are lacking, and they bring to it a different thing. They are able to have implementations that are at the level that's appreciated, and also to involve the community increasingly more, to establish priorities that come from the communities, the benefiting communities themselves, and that makes it fine. So over the years, I think it's taking some of the burden away from government and enable us to have a much bigger scope for implementation of development endeavor. But they also have their shortcomings. It's not all, there's not enough of full accountability in their sources of funding, in their processes. And increasingly, the governments themselves and the authorities are recognizing the value of NGOs and knowing that neither side can do it, that it has to be a collective effort, a cooperative effort between the institutions of the state and the non-governmental organization, but more importantly, that both would recognize that you only get the best results when you involve the people who either benefit from it and who are responsible for effective results. And so I think there's more encouragement for being able to do this. Some missing piece, the private sector. How are you going to create that kind of cooperation that brings in this one missing place, and that's where the capital is. That's where the money is, right?
And that's locally led development as well.
And I think part of the reform effort of today is to make sure you have this integrated approach of blending resources to get best results and to be able to scale up the development effort.
Excellent. Thank you. Over to you, Kulunu.
Thanks, Carrie. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, Madam President. I think it's truly an honor and a privilege for us to be having this conversation with you. So you touched upon this, the fact that many developing countries today are facing a range of major challenges, from rising debt to a lack of support from some donor countries to even challenges to their democracy. But you, as we heard earlier, have faced many challenging circumstances in your own life and in your career, and you've persevered, prevailed, and you've overcome them. I'm really willing to hear such an example of such a situation that you went through and how you overcame this challenge. Because I ask this because right now, with all these challenges that developing countries are facing, many of us who want to be aspirant development practitioners, or those of you who are experienced, we can feel like we are swimming against the tide. It can feel a little overwhelming. And you may have felt that too at some point. How did you overcome that? I'd like to hear an example or a story from you. Thank you.
Well, the one time I felt like there was nothing I could do. That was when our country faced Ebola.
Oh, yeah.
Because this was a strange disease that we had not encountered before.
Yeah.
That came into the northeastern part of the country, and people were dying without knowing the cause.
Yeah.
And of course, that led to people fleeing across local borders for safety. And we're all exasperated with our health officials, our health systems, not knowing how to respond. I think that was the most
that's
difficult time. What do you do in this case? Well, I think first of all, we started like anyone facing an unknown challenge can sometimes act without thought. And militancy was the first reaction is, stop the movement of people, keep them quiet. Well, that you can't stop people running from something like this when you're running for their safety and their lives. And so it took us a while to realize that we had to change the approach. And then that means, of course, first of all, information, making sure we didn't have scare informations involving everybody, realize the severity of the problem, communicating it to people, in a reliable, so they knew that the information we provided was reliable. And then, of course, recognizing that the best people to do it were those in the community themselves.
Yeah.
They would be the first responders,
Yes.
the first one to identify there was a problem and to report. And of course, then finally, the leadership of bringing the partners together, the support that came from outside and the local report, and taking leadership yourself as the head of the nation, being the one that collaborated all, being the one that deliver the message, helping people to go beyond their own fears, and recognizing the contribution of people. And so that was the most difficult thing. But I think as much as we lost 5,000 people, and with the other two countries involved, we all lost, but quite a few number of our citizens. But I think we came out of it, Liberia came out of it, recognizing that we pulled it all together by using the communities to take leadership in their own society and be the ones that respond to it.
Exactly.
And that worked. So it tells you, if you're going to get effective result in any kind of development effort, use those who are most concerned, those who most benefit, those who are more responsible. Give them a role, an effective role, and that makes implementation much easier.
Perfect words of wisdom. Thank you. So we have one last question for you, and this question focuses on your level of confidence in the future. So building on Kulunu's question, he detailed some of the problems that are existing in the world today. As you survey the world, are you optimistic or are you pessimistic about the future? And if you are optimistic, what gives you confidence in humanity's ability to secure a resilient and peaceful future? What is it that brings you hope?
The world has gone through crisis so many times in the past. And one could easily say that we have a current crisis.
Yes.
There's just too much uncertainties there. there are too many backtracking of some of the things that we had made progress on. The global political environment is changing. The ability of partnerships and global cooperation have also faltered, have declined. And so right now it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a confused world, but certainly concerns for the way things have changed over the past couple of decades and the effect that this has had on countries. I mean, like, you know, Africa already have nations that have changed partnerships, gone away, and so now we have to remain optimistic in the future. But we also have to accept that things are changing. And the old order has to give way. Political systems are not going to remain the way they were. And so one has to see how we remold what we're doing to make sure that we are able to keep the mutuality in effort and cooperation, but at the same time recognizing that there are differences.
Yes.
The global leadership of the world will also change slightly. And as an optimist, you say we hope that ultimately the cooperation among those different systems and changes will recognize that if there is cooperation, it's a win-win for all. Right. Otherwise, we all are going to, you know, to face a world that we all can no longer compete in. And so, am I an optimist for the future? Yes, I am, and I think we have to be. But we have to also accept that there will be changes in the world, changes in the global financial system, changes in the global political system, and recognition that there's more equality is required.
Yes.
So that some will have to recognize that a leadership is not always concentrated in one place or one block or one group, and to recognize that we all have a role to play if we're going to be able to resurrect the cooperation that we all enjoyed before. Africa knows that the primary responsibility for African development will rest on Africa. Yeah. International development assistance has been declining.
Yes.
And that requires Africa's own collective effort to be able to address the issues, to get away from some of the self-imposed failures, whether it's corruption or lack of something, but at the same time that the partnership too must recognize that there's never been enough of what it took for the transformation of those countries that needed that support, so that it always remained dominant in the giver. And that too has to change. Yeah. So let's all be optimistic.
Yes.
After all.
Thank you. Change is good. Thank you so much.
I told someone, I said, right now it's a confused world, it's a concerning world, it's in some places an unhappy world, but hey, it's still a wonderful world.
Yes, oh, that's a great quote. It is still a wonderful world. Thank you so much, Madam President, for sharing your wisdom with us tonight. I have to say it feels so good to end on an optimistic note. Look, they're all standing for you. You don't have to go. I have a few more words.
No. Thank you.
So we're going to, I have a few more words to share. What I want to say is this. Can you still hear me? No. I'm turned off. Oh, there we go. Okay. First of all, I want to say how wonderful it feels to end on an optimistic note. Thank you so much. It's still a wonderful world. To my colleagues in the audience, I really want to thank you for being here and for remaining with us so late into the evening. And I want to leave us with this. We are in the business of humanity, and our work has never been more important. So now is the time to buckle up, you made that comment, to take stock of where we are, and to face the new day with hope in our hearts and fire in our bellies. As we just learned from President Sirleaf, there is reason for hope. And although at this moment we are facing grave uncertainty, it is now time to gather together, draw strength from one another, learn from each other, including those of us who may have different worldviews, give ourselves and others grace, and then live boldly into the future. We have work to do. We must get on with it. Thank you very much, all of us.
Thank you all.
Or should I remove this?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to take photos, and that's great. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We really have thought it was a great dinner. There is an after party upstairs where the reception was before, is sponsored by Making Sense International, is for the young and the young at heart, so please join us upstairs.